Boy, it's terrible.
It's terrible news, isn't
Terrible news.
it? Reading that.
Man tears into healthcare system after father dies waiting for tests.
Yeah. Tragic.
Folks, last year, well, probably 13 months ago now, a little better than 13 months ago, I was a healthy person who never had an ache nor pain. And of course, as a lot of you know, I had a heart attack. Went to the hospital. While I was in the hospital, had the second heart attack. And only for that, I wouldn't have survived it. But the problem started was the next morning when I said, well, what's next, doc? And he said, well, you got to get a dye test. And now some of you will remember this story quite well, but just wanted to give you a follow-up on it. So I said, well, okay, how long is that going to take? He said, well, it could take 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks. I said, are you serious? So I had done some research and found out that that test should be done within 19 minutes of a heart attack. Newfoundland has a population of about 550,000 people, but it's spread over a very vast range of land geographically. We have one cath lab for all of the province. And the province consists of actually 2 pieces of land, Newfoundland and Labrador, which is a separate, it's the same province, but it's a separate piece of land.
That's right.
And it's a big,
It's remote.
it's very remote. So, you know, and I said during the time, I said, well, this is not going to work because for one thing, you're not going to keep me in this hospital for 4 or 5 weeks. It's just not going to happen. He said, well, if you go home, you're going to die. And Kathy, if you'll remember, I said to him, I said, well, I'll go home and I'll die.
That's right.
Because somebody's got to make a change. Because people are going to start dying waiting for this dye test. Because when you have a heart attack, they don't know if there's any blockages. They don't know what's going on because they need this dye test to show what's happening in the circuitry, you know, in the plumbing.
Exactly.
Right? If there's a blockage, they'll see it.
Yes.
So, you know, of course, then you started doing some videos, and of course, all our viewers got together and started writing our premier and writing our government officials. And the next thing, I was in within 6 days and had the dye test done and sent home on the 7th day. So technically, and I've always said it, and you've always said it,
That's right.
the YouTuber saved my life.
They did.
You know,
Yes, they did.
there's without a doubt,
Yeah.
right? So this morning, you know, we get up and I read this. A guy's father had a heart attack on the weekend. He goes in, and they said it could take up to 2 or 3 weeks to get a dye test. And I don't know if he stayed in the hospital. They didn't tell one or the other.
No.
But earlier this week now, he had the second heart attack and passed away.
That's right.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
This day and age, that should never happen.
No, it wouldn't have. If he had that test done, he
They
could be here today.
would have reacted to it.
Yeah.
They would have done something about it. So, you know, after the YouTubers came to bat for me or for us, I said, when I get out, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to try to make a difference. I'm going to try to change this, right? It was the most disappointing thing that I ever tried to do in my life.
Yes, it was.
The government is as useless as a tits on a bull. They don't care. They really don't care. The opposition was even worse. The opposition got to the point where we even wanted to you know, have it brought up in the House about this particular problem. You would not believe the red tape that they created so that we couldn't get this brought up in the House.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Davis was one of them, ex-premier, and just absolutely, and I hope he sees this, he was absolutely no help whatsoever. You know, nobody in government was a help. And not only that, neither were the people.
No.
I would be here working in the shop, and people would come in and they'd say, been watching your videos, really happy it worked out good for you, really happy it survived, but you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Talk about discouraging.
Yeah, you're wasting your time. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to drop this. I never had, or we never had, not 1 ounce of support.
No.
for trying to change this.
No, not in Newfoundland.
Because here's the problem with Newfoundlanders. Now, it could be like it everywhere else. Newfoundlanders do not care what happens to other Newfoundlanders unless it affects them personally.
That's right.
When it affects them personally, then they scream and they shout, and it's personal then.
That's right.
But when it happens to the guy next door, that's the guy next door. That'll never happen to me.
This is the sort of thing that could happen to anyone, anytime. So maybe a year
Yeah.
ago,
Well,
if this had changed, maybe this would have been a different outcome
exactly.
for this man, or maybe
Exactly.
others that we don't even know about.
If we had to have some changes made now,
That's right.
this wouldn't have happened. He would have survived this.
That's right.
The system is crooked. I could, if I had the time, I could sit down here and I could tell you stories of what happened and what I seen, and meetings that I had with not so much government officials, but people involved in managing the healthcare system.
That's right. That's a whole other long story.
It's unbelievable. I could literally write a book on it.
Mm-hmm.
I was even shunned while I was in the ICU. People did not want to even deal with me because it blew out of proportion so bad that people were nervous to even say anything.
That's right.
It was just a terrible, terrible experience. Even our viewers didn't even get the full story. I can guarantee you, if anybody wants to talk to me from the media, they're going to get the full story now. Because maybe it's going to take the full story to fix this problem.
Maybe.
Eh?
Definitely.
This is ridiculous.
It
When
is.
people have to die because of a simple test, a test that's supposed to be done within 19 minutes of a heart attack. With such a big area, such a big province, and such a mass area of land to deal with, and a small population, we had people analyze geographically the situation that we're in with the number of people, and said you're supposed to have 13 cath labs.
That's right. That's right.
As opposed to just one. And they didn't change anything first or last. They're just putting people and letting them rot in hospitals
Yeah.
until they feel fit to send them in for a dye test. Now, a guy could be in for a dye test, he could be waiting for a dye test, and they triage things. They take the worst case scenarios first and send them in. So, I mean, this guy, if they perceive this guy here as not being a serious case, well, there's ever so many people getting in front of him all the time.
Yeah.
Now, if he decides he's going to go home and not stay in hospital, it could take up to a year to get that dye test, because he's not even on the waiting list then.
That's right. And he has to really wait, doesn't he, until it gets critical enough
Well-
to get triaged and bumped up.
Well,
Same thing happened
he's
there.
going to die.
Yeah.
There's a pretty good chance he's going to die like this gentleman died.
Not good.
It's just terrible. So I just wanted to let everybody at home know, because this kind of stirred the pot for me
That's
this
right.
morning.
So you want to do an update.
Yeah, I just wanted to do an update and let you know, we have never given up on this, but it's been a terrible disappointment. Newfoundlanders do not support Newfoundlanders. Now, I know all Newfoundlanders who are going to watch this are going to say he's full of crap and is not. Listen, and I know for a fact, I've seen it with my own eyes, Newfoundlanders will not support Newfoundlanders. They'll support somebody coming in from the outside before they'll support themselves.
Absolutely.
I can bet you right now down at Carbonear Hospital, there's probably, I'm going to guess, probably 10 people waiting for this dye test. Some of them has probably been there for 4 weeks, and not one of their family members have ever contacted me or us to say, keep up the fight. We need you fighting for us.
No.
Nobody. Everybody is like ostriches here in Newfoundland. They stick their head in the sand and hope the problem goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only way the problem's going to go away is when you close the lid on the casket.
And that's too late.
It's too late then,
When you
So-
were in hospital, I met people in the elevator that were in the hospital then, 3
Yeah.
weeks waiting.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But they didn't speak up, or family members.
It's unbelievable.
So, what
I mean,
can
when
we
you
do?
have somebody that you don't even know who takes the time to leave their home, come to Bay Roberts, come up our driveway, open the door, come in, shake hands with you, and say, I watch your videos, I really enjoy them, but with regards to the healthcare system, you're wasting your time.
Yeah,
There is something wrong with the mentality of Newfoundlanders.
exactly.
whatever happened to fighting for a good cause?
That's right.
You know, it seems like we're more caught up with wanting potholes fixed, wanting arenas put in, wanting baseball parks put in, soccer parks, but whatever.
Yes.
But by the good God, we won't support ourselves trying to get a bit of good health care.
No.
You know, and that's a fact.
Something people need to think about.
You know, we got to get our priorities straightened away, folks. You know, because every Newfoundlander is watching this video, and there's going to be lots of them watching it. Every Newfoundlander is watching this video is going to say, well, you know, that's Paul blowing off steam. But think about it. It could be your mother. It could be your father. It could be your brother. It could be your sister. It could be a very close friend. It could be your wife.
That's right.
It could be your husband. You know.
And while you're waiting, your
Yeah.
situation can change anytime.
And if something happens, God forbid, and they die, now you have to think about this video and you have to say, if I had to do something back then, when Paul and Kathy did that video, maybe my loved one would be alive today.
Something to think about.
Get hold of your member, folks, and tell them you want change. You want you want more cath labs, and you want them spread out throughout the province. There's no good having everything in St. John's, in the capital city. It's a big province. Why should you have to medevac somebody from Labrador when they're
right.
sick to St. John's, Newfoundland, and make them wait 4 or 5 weeks in the process just to get it?
Or travel hours across the island by ambulance.
Yeah, and find out then that you've probably been bumped.
Yeah.
It's not good enough. Our healthcare system is the absolute shits. And I excuse my language, but I'm very, very upset over this. This man should not have died. Should not have died. And Eastern Health, that's another subject. I could do a full video on Eastern Health alone. And we won't even get into that now. But I'm going to tell you something. It will all eventually come out, the stuff that I've learned. So stay tuned. Folks, thanks for your ear. I appreciate having a million shoulders that I can vent on.
Yes.
And we'll see you in the next video if something changes. Take care.